Hey there, everybody. Welcome back with the Plat. Purplatypus is the name, and welcome to another Bazaar video. It's your boy Plat. It's your other boy Laliette. You may not know him if you've, not watched videos on this channel before. In fact, that doesn't make any sense. You don't know him. No one knows him. Laliette, tell me about yourself.
Yeah, I'm an avid card game phenom, background in Pokemon, Light Seekers, etc. I've played at the world stage on multiple of these games, and really I just enjoy game theory, and my day job is being a data scientist, so I kind of just enjoy numbers and all the fun stuff.
So we were just kind of talking about this, how, you have your brain as one big part of your body, and then you've got your gut as like another big decision maker. There's a whole science thing behind it. But the point is, he's the brain, I'm the gut. Okay. That's how it works. He's the data analyst. I'm the guy that I'm like, I don't know why this is working, but I know it feels good and it works. But yeah, we're going to talk about the Bazaar. We got a little outline here. This will be, I don't know if we'll call it a podcast, but we just want to have some fun. We've been fucking in love with this game, playing it. I think we've played it with every ounce of our free time since it's dropped. At least I have, and I believe Laliette is in a similar spot. He has to wait till his kids go to bed, but after that, it's Bazaar time. So actually, I am interested in how is your since launch. How has your experience with Bazaar been? How have you spent your time in the game?
Yeah, so at first I wanted to play all the heroes, master all the heroes, and because Dooley was the most difficult one labeled in the game, and I do believe is the most difficult one,
Yes.
I really wanted to master him as well. I quickly figured out that playing all three heroes and getting good at all three at the same time was pretty difficult, so I started kind of like nailing them down one by one. So I started playing a lot of Vanessa, then a lot of Dooley, then a lot of Vanessa, then a lot of Pig, then a lot of Vanessa. So really just a lot of Vanessa. And I feel comfortable about talking about Vanessa. I've watched a decent amount of like Crips content. So when I speak about other builds, it's usually through the lens of what I see him do.
That makes sense. So for me, it's kind of a similar thing. I except I kind of came at a different angle. I came in, I'm like, I want to master one character. I want to be the best. And the reason I didn't pick Dooley myself was because for me, Dooley is he's kind of like 7 characters. There are some of the cores that are very similar, but the decision of when you play Dooley, how all 3 of these cores might play drastically different games means I feel like I have to learn even more characters. And like there's this whole skill set of deciding maybe you take the core off your build. And I have such a mental barrier to doing that because I start with it and it's like part of my character's body. Like I just is like, you know what? I'm going to start simple. So I've spent probably all of my time outside of maybe 4 games, literally. And I'm currently on my way. I'm gold 4 right now. With Pygmalion. I've played Pygmalion day and night, night and day. I've played every single possible build you could play on him. I've used every item on him many times. I feel like I have essentially mastered Pygmalion, but the issue is I don't want to stop playing him now. I'm having a great time. I'm just having fun. And really quickly, one thing I wanted to highlight, I was going to bring it up later, but I just think it's kind of relevant now, is for me, like one of my favorite things about the Bazaar is that when I downloaded and I played the game, I was like, all right, this is a game. It's fun. There's 3 characters. I didn't realize now that I've played Pygmalion so much is like if this game released and it was called the Bazaar, there were no characters. You just hit play and it was Pygmalion, but you didn't pick Pygmalion. You just had like a default character. I feel like that's a standalone game on its own. I feel like Pygmalion is a standalone game in the diversity of content and the amount of cards he has and the amount of everything. Like I would be happy with just playing this game as only Pygmalion. But he's one character in this game. I feel like I don't know, I haven't played enough Vanessa, so I can't say for sure for her, but between Dooley and all of his cores and Pygmalion, I'm like, these are like full game content wise of content. Like, and they're gonna release more characters. Like, that's kind of crazy to me. Like, this game is gonna have, as they release characters, it's almost like they release a new game for you in a lot of ways. It's like hundreds of runs of new experiences and then hundreds of runs of mastering those experiences and maybe hundreds of runs of just having fun doing your favorite builds. Like, I feel like there's just so much content in the game, just with their characters that they've added. But yeah,
Yeah.
anything you want
To
to add to
build
that?
off of that real quick. So other characters' cards are already in the game, which
Mm-hmm.
is awesome because it just thematically lets you get a taste, just a little taste of what it might be like to play that character. But what we will see is that when new characters come out, not the ones that are already have cards in the game, but brand new characters, which is a planned kind of like expansion
Mhm.
thing. Um, it will not only be a whole new game for that individual character within the stratum, those cards are now available in all the other card pools. Not easily, but it's one of those things where like it does create a bunch of new variances to the old characters as well. So it's almost like it's a new standalone DLC that is a mini DLC for all the other existing games. And I love the depth, and the fact that this took 6 years to build doesn't really surprise me after pouring however much time, 100 hours,
Yeah,
into this game.
who knows? I haven't been tracking, but like, yeah, there are. It's funny because it's not difficult at all to get items from other characters. It's near impossible to get specific items from other characters. So that's a very fun balance. Because if you go to merchants, merchants are only going to sell items from your character ever. I go to Andy, I go to Big Guy, I go to Shield Guy. They sell items from my character. But if you go to like the docks and you get a random item, it could be anything in the game. You know, you go to certain events, you can go to a merchant that is the hero merchant that sells only items from them. So, like I said, it's really fun because there are ways to get items. Like, yeah, you can go fight you can go fight the crow or whatever, and the crow has a grindstone, which is a Pygmalion item, but now you can get it on Vanessa. So there are ways to do that. But I love that, like, for the most part, the pools are just they're hard to access, but they're always there, so you can always get a little taste. Although with Mac, I hate it as Pygmalion because they're all potions with ammo. I have not a single thing. There's not a single Mac item that synergizes with Pygmalion, even like an iota. So every time I see a Mac item, I'm like, well, this sucks. I don't have any poison. I don't have any burn. I don't have any ammo. What do you want me to do, Mac? But there are other
Even
characters.
as
The tool
Vanessa,
lady.
there's a very small subset of the Venn diagram that allows you to use max characters, even though they must be the most adjacent characters, both having burn, both having poison, both having ammo. So that's one of the things I like is that most of his items would be bad in my builds, but there's a couple that are broken.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I'm excited. I'm Max, my most anticipated character. I'm sure the tool lady is really cool. Tools are cool, but an alchemist, bro, just having poison potions, frost potions, fire potions, healing potions, reloading. Just that's
I
my
love how you
second place
picture
out.
him drinking the potions, and I picture him throwing the potions. You
I'm
know?
sure there's some, but also like I'm excited for there to be a character where regeneration might be a real strategy because you can get regeneration as Pygmalion. There's a few items, but it's like what if you get 100 regeneration? That's like an incredible amount of investment and not that good. So I'm hoping that he has some sort of like, oh, every time there's an item that's like every time you poison, you get regeneration. I'm like, okay, that's suddenly a thing, bro. But anyway, let's actually get into the topics of what we're talking about today. The very first thing we wanted to talk about is a speculative tier list. This is going to be kind of a quick, brief thing, but I'm just kind of interested. What do you think the best builds in the game are? And I kind of want to give you my take on what I think the best builds in the game are. Maybe we
So
go
now that we
character by
have
character. Maybe it's like, what's the
all
best
the
two builds for
nerfs
each?
and
For
everything,
yeah,
right? So if we go character by character, I think that the strongest character in the game is Pygmalion. I think that Pygmalion has so many viable builds. Um, I don't play him enough to know which one would be the best and the greatest, but I have had the most success with the Crook medium weapon builds. Those
very
seem to
strong.
be pretty reliable 10 wins. And then as Vanessa, or actually no, I should let you now say the Pygmalion build that you think is the strongest.
Yeah, so for Pygmalion, the two builds that I would consider the strongest are, I mean, Yo-Yo is really strong. Like, so it's for Pygmalion, for me, it comes less about specific builds and more about specific items. Like, the bird is very strong with its multicast. Yo-Yo is very strong. Overall, I have found shield builds to be very weak, although they were insanely powerful about a week ago. I think the poison stuff has just been eaten through it way too much, and it's just not very powerful. But as far as powerful builds, max HP Pygmalion has been very good, getting up 20, 30,000 HP. It's just like it's so much HP that they can't kill you. And then you could easily run something like you could just run healing and heal through it, or you could just run one of the big hammers and just donk someone for 10,000 damage, right? Like you deal 20% of your damage, you go bonk bonk, and they just die. And you have so much HP, unless they permanently freeze you with some like super high rolly build, you're probably going to be totally safe because they're not going to like dagger you down, you know, fast enough to before you get to attack. The other one I would say is the Crook build is very strong, but I don't think it's as easy to get online because it can be, but you really you only need medium items. It is kind of like a build that builds itself, right? Because there's like you just take your 5 best medium items, or you take 4 of your best medium items and 2 small items. But you really need to get that Crook up to diamond for it to become good. The 10 damage per medium is not as that good. The 20 is not that good. It's good, but it's like you really need to get that to diamond. And then you kind of need the Atotl Lotl or whatever it's called in order to really make the build pop going at 1 second. But actually, even above full medium, I would say the drum build in general, which is you can make it a medium build, you can make it a yo-yo small item build, you could do a bunch of stuff there. So I would say the Jabalian drum build and the max HP Pygmalion builds have felt like my strongest. But I mean, again, like you said, almost, I think out of like his 30 builds, like they're all kind of like, there's maybe a couple right here and the rest are here. And then there's like 1 or 2 that are just kind of down there right now.
Right. Because I mean, I've even gotten 10 wins with the with Pygmalion with the Royal Dagger thingy.
Yeah.
Along with like the dog and then that house that or not the house, the silk, right? That like
Silk,
so
yeah.
all
That
these
would be
weapons
a
are built around the idea that you sell small items and then you just get like big returns.
yeah, buy sell builds are very strong. I would say there's almost no downside to them, although the only time they don't they 7 win incredibly easily. They have a harder time 10 winning as builds get crazy because your scaling is very linear. Like, yes, you get your royal whatever sword up to like 3,000, 4,000 attack, but sometimes it's just like they get you permanently slowed, and it's just like if you're going up against an all-in Pygmalion shield with hyper scaling, like they're getting 100,000 shield in like 15 seconds or something. Like your 4,000 damage weapon looks good, but it's really good at 7 wins. It could struggle to get 10 wins if you go up against the high rolly ones, because it's not really it's so consistent from the beginning of the game all the way through to the late game. I think it's actually a great sacrifice that its top end its ceiling is a little bit lower because its floor is so high.
Exactly. And it's not a build I would force, but when you're offered like dog or dagger or silk to start the game, it all of a sudden becomes a viable strategy that can get you a perfect run, or maybe like you go 10-1 and you're just finishing the game when all of those crazy builds are popping off. So it's okay. You know what I mean?
It's so good. That's a high tempo build.
Yeah, if you do end up getting into round or day 14, 15, like, yeah, you're kind of done.
I want to clarify. When I say it's a high tempo build, I mean the dog is a little rough because but because it could be a little expensive. Its scaling is really low at the low level, whereas the scepter scales like 20 every time you sell something. But like silk and the sword, it's like when I say high tempo, I mean like you're gonna win your first 3 and 4 days, no problem, because your scaling early is so strong. So you could then pivot later if you need to. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. But like, so you're starting off on the right foot where you're like, because if you lose your first 3 days, you know your minimum going to day 13 if you win the next 10 days in a row. So you have to then aim for a more all-out big boy build as opposed to trying to end it early. So yeah, winning those early days is, even though it's not that punishing up front to lose, because it doesn't feel like, oh, I just lost whatever 1 prestige. Remember, going from day 12 to day 13 or day 14 to day 15, that's a lot harder fight to win than it was the day before. People are getting crazy at those days. All right, Vanessa.
Absolutely.
Vanessa.
So what is your strongest Vanessa build from your perspective, which is really just fighting against Vanessa? What has been doing well against you?
I have only seen 2 Vanessa builds that have ever done anything powerful. It's like currently. There's like a lot of weak Vanessa builds I see where they're using rifle or sniper rifle and they're just doing 1 weapon build and they're hitting me for 3,000 lifesteal. And I'm like, I don't even care, bro. That's nothing. The only ones that I've seen are still Infinite Dagger, I think with Repeater. That's still pretty strong because they had something that like every time they constantly refilled the dagger. So like it hit me 30 times and still had full ammo. I don't fully know that interaction. That's still strong. but you can outscale it. It doesn't really, but it's so aggro. Sometimes you don't have time to get your scaling in the fight. And then the poison builds, I'm about probably 70-30. I win 70, lose 30 on the high rolls. It kind of depends, because the poison builds a lot of times will have a lot of slow involved in them, the ones that I've gone against, where I'm like, okay, I could win, but I'm just never getting to use my fucking items, you know? So those are the two that I would say are definitely the strongest from what I've seen.
And when it comes to me playing Vanessa, the only two builds I've been really playing are essentially those two builds, right? So I either play like a critical ammo build, which doesn't have to be exactly as you described, but that's like the best version of it. So it's like I'm always trying to get to an end game where I either have the blunderbuss ripping off with the fire or the repeater, and you have like the critical reload. So like every time you crit, you reload, but you have 100% crit, so you always reload. Um, and then the poison build, right? Whether you use the pufferfish or whether you use the catfish, they're slightly different builds,
Mhm.
but both of them, like, I would say if you're going to go against somebody who has scaling, pufferfish is worse, but that's the faster one. Like if you want to just kill somebody 5 seconds into a fight, pufferfish can do it. But if you want to kill somebody when you're in sandstorm, that's catfish, because catfish gets more and more poison every time a haste goes off. So
Mm.
eventually catfish is applying 500 or 700 poison every time, like every 2.2 seconds, right? So like that kind of can be really oppressive because poison doesn't really go away unless they're healing. But of course, when you heal, you take away one poison. So if I'm giving you 100 poison and you're taking away four poisons from your four heals, that's not like really mathing out in the right
No.
direction.
Because you don't heal at all proportional to the amount you heal. It's the amount of heal triggers. Um, so even if I'm healing 14 times a second, like you're doing 150 poison a second, it's like it doesn't matter. I'm getting deeper and deeper in the hole, and it never degrades like a burn does. Do you think poison needs counterplay, or do you think its weakness of it being half the you have to it's harder to apply for the most part than burn is, and it ticks slower at half the speed? Do you, because it's one of the slowest ways to deal damage, do you think that it needs more counterplay, or do you think it's inherently weak enough as a mechanic that if you get the super poison build that it's like fine, maybe just a few items need to be nerfed, not counterplay to the mechanic itself?
I would like some level of counterplay to the mechanic. I don't want like a lot, but like you know how you have that one item, I don't remember the
It
exact name of
coolant
it,
or half your
but
burn.
half your burn, like that would be cool. Maybe a quarter of your poison's gone, because when you're getting poisoned at 500 per second, like that's a lot of poison you can get rid of. And then your heal number, not the number of times you're healing, that's reducing the poison. But if you're healing for 1,000 health, now all of a sudden you can work towards defeating that poison. And I just don't like the current way it is, where if you're not like one of these hyper health builds, um, and with hyper healing as well, right? Like, and it's really hard to compete. So you need one or the other. You need a good amount of health, really good healing, or you need just so much health that it's going to take me forever to get to the point where I can even poison you out.
Yeah, it could be hard to, as Pygmalion, if you go all in on damage, I could do pretty good against the poison stuff, because even though I'm going all in on damage, I still have like 6,000, 7,000 HP. That usually is enough of a buffer where I can get my damage off. Um, but it's still like, the thing is, some of the Pygmalion's most powerful items are shield items, and they just, if you're going a shield build, you got nothing versus the poison at all. Like,
Yeah,
because so
you
much, like,
can't really get away with shield right now because a lot of people are playing poison. I think a good amount of the people are playing it wrong. But the proper build will come out, and it's not even the one I'm playing, but it's like there is a peak build, and I think Poison Vanessa for 9-10 wins is way too consistent right now. It's not quite as consistent as Critical Vanessa was, but I still think 80% of the time I can get 9 or 10 wins while forcing, not while just like letting the game come to me, but like while saying I'm going to sit down and I'm going to play Poison Vanessa.
I think there's a pivoting point, at least for me and my builds, where healing and the shield stuff like just beats it really easily at 4 wins, 5 wins. maybe as high as 7 wins, but there is a hard pivot where, because like I can get the bird triggering every 2.5 seconds, 3 seconds to remove 7 burn, and I could or 7 poison, and I can even make it 14 if I have the item where every time the bird activates it also heals. So I could be removing like 14 every 2.5 seconds, and they just don't ever get enough poison on it to matter. But there's a hard pivot point where it's like that is suddenly they're through the roof poisoning me, and that completely shuts off. And so what makes, because bird is strong, but it's sometimes bird's the most powerful item I have, and it's only healing for 5. It's like doesn't matter that it's healing, it matters that it's triggering that many times. And but then it's like, because I didn't put effort into actually healing, I just wanted healing triggers to trigger other things like bushel. Suddenly it's like you just get destroyed by poison. It's not even close. But I think it's overall it's a pretty good like rock paper scissors thing right now. Poison, I don't think has a lot of weaknesses right now, other than maybe you could aggro it down, but they typically have, when I play against it, a lot of control elements as well. Like just occasionally they freeze some of my stuff, occasionally they slow all of my stuff. So it's actually hard to aggro them down.
Life Preserver, right? So
Mhm.
you get like 2 full health bars. That's really nice. And when people are using one-shot builds, um, the damage doesn't carry over to your next bar, right? So
That's what I love
if
about
you
the
hit
double
me,
whammy is you hit them twice, each for like
yes.
8,000 damage. So you just go bonk, bonk, because the Life Preserver never heals more than 2,000, so it's really easy on that multicast to hit them with that 2,000.
It's not true that it doesn't heal for more than 2,000. Any effects in the game that boost healing
We'll boost
boosts
that. Yeah,
your
yeah, yeah.
Life Preserver.
I meant like
So,
at a base, it's 2,000. That's my bad.
but you won't get it much. You're like, I get it to like 2,500 sometimes, just because like you get some options in there and you're like, oh yeah, why not? But I believe the proper way to play the build is you don't start playing the poison build, because poison is super weak in the first 4 days, right?
Hmm.
So it's like you pick up the pieces, you put them in your chest, and you play weapon,
Yeah, you just
Vanessa,
play
which is
shark
really
fist or
strong.
whatever, the shark tooth fist thing, and
Yeah,
punch people to death.
however you build your, weapon centric build, whether you use shark fists, whether you use ammo weapons, I don't care what you use. She has a lot of over tooled things for the first few days. And then when you do hit day 5, normally you can have a pivot directly into maybe not a full poison build, but like it's enough where you can start winning against the Pygmalions we're talking about. And then you don't have to worry about that rock, paper, scissors game, because it doesn't exist. You're playing the thing that's better against Pig the first 4 days, then you're transitioning to the thing that's better against Pig for the next 4 days. And then, of course, you have to make your build by day 9 or you lose. But, like, if you do make that build where you're able to kill the person in 5 seconds, unless they're a huge pig, the odds that you're going to run into a bunch of the huge pigs when that's not what the meta is right now, even if that's really good against you, it doesn't matter if that's not what you're going to be playing against.
I love, by the way, their balance patch was more profound on the metagame than I even thought it would be. Um, I haven't seen I don't think I've had a single build other than a few bugged builds against people with infinite scaling that like isn't resetting after a fight for some reason. Like, oh, this golf club started at 900 attack on day 4. Like, that's obviously not, there's no possible way to get at the 900 attack on day 4 unless it was keeping it scaling in between battles for some reason. I don't know what caused
It
that.
does still happen.
But like, as someone that played a lot of Pig, I mean, I don't see any skyscraper builds at all. I think they might have actually hit it too much in the sense that the math doesn't even make sense to me the way it works now. It doesn't work how it reads. Maybe the math is using different numbers. Like when it's like this triples its value in combat, this doubles its value in combat, and this gives it double value. These aren't like they aren't working in a way I think. I think it's not using its doubled value and then it's using the smallest possible number that it could use. I don't know how to describe it. I tried to do the math like on a calculator like 6 different ways, and I couldn't get the exact number it was giving me in combat. So it seems like they're doing something there, but I haven't played a single game where it's like 1.5 seconds, 1.6 seconds, 15,000 damage, instantly dying, right? Like games, even in the top end super builds, they're lasting 6, 7, 8 seconds, right? Like maybe an infinite super high roll crit dagger is not lasting that long. But that's like, even those daggers, like I see them have daggers at like 700 attack and I got like 15,000 HP. I'm like, you know, you gotta get a lot of those daggers through me, bro. So even those builds, like all the matches are lasting longer and my items feel more relevant, where I could easily get 10 wins with an item that takes 10 seconds to even fire, unless I'm going up against an infinite freeze, but that's like super rare. All right, so let's move past Vanessa. Let's get into the Dooley. We definitely are combined. We have not as much experience at this character than we do with the other two. But yeah, what do you? I actually am a little clueless. I see very little Dooley, and most of the time I do, it's some sort of friends build that sucks and is really weak until I get to day 14, and then I'm infinitely frozen forever. That's kind of what I see in Dooley right now.
Yeah, so Dooley does have a high roll freeze build that is not easily replicated. So that's good, but like it can, like, it's one of those things where if you have a build that if you can make any build and it promises you win, it's probably instant Dooley freeze. But outside of the fact that you probably never put it together until like day 13, you have to be able to get to day 13. And friends, they're good. They could be better.
The issue with that build for me, when I've come across it, is because I faced many versions of it, is not, if you have 90% of that build done, it's like not really better than if you have 20%. Like it just loses. Like it's just like, I'm not being permanently frozen and I just kill you. Yeah, I'm slower and it takes me longer, but I'm also Pygmalion. I have shit tons more HP than you. So it's like, it's fine. Once it gets to 100%, it wins. But most of the builds in the game that are like day 5 and day like 10, I'm like getting way stronger every single day. And in that build, I feel like it's a 100 or 0 thing almost. Like, because I've gone up against a lot of them, they're just, if they're not permanently freezing me, they just always lose. And they're, so it feels like it until it all clicks, it just isn't really a build even, you know?
That's kind of true. That's how it feels whenever I play the build. Is I
Yeah.
feel like I go multiple days without really getting any stronger. I am able to kind of like push out losses longer, and sometimes that gets you a win against Vanessa. So like Dooley can beat Vanessa with the just straight up friends build. But I have seen some really cool stuff that that Crip has done, where he's like made really good shield core builds, or really just dually playing shields no matter what the core is. So like, you know, the dome thing, it's a
Yeah.
large item, right?
Every time you
It's
take
shield.
damage, you get 30% damage a shield, right?
No,
No, no,
this
no.
one
The other
is,
one, the offensive one.
yeah, the offensive one, where it does damage equal to the shield that you have, and
Yeah.
it gives a little bit of shield. Um,
See,
so
I thought you were
that thing
talking
can
about
get
this one, but you were
bananas.
talking about, is it a large item?
It is a large item.
This
It's
one right
right
here.
there. So the force field can get insane as long as you're able to generate enough shield where they can't destroy it before you attack again. Um, so if you can get 3,000 shield, you just pop them for 3,000 in the face. So I've seen some really strong builds he's made with that. I haven't actually played Dooley um,
Is
more than
force field,
twice in this patch.
is this better or worse than the Pygmalion's medium shield? Because it
Isn't
does
that
damn.
weird how like it's so much better than Pygmalion's medium shield because of how fast it goes off?
Okay. Because, yeah, Pygmalion shield's like 8 seconds, I think. And it has very
Yeah.
similar text, but this is probably, what, 5 seconds or something?
I don't remember the speed, but you can make it faster. I think that's the
Okay.
important
Yeah,
part.
it's true. It's true. You're in Dooley. You can make things really fast when you're in Dooley.
Yeah.
Um, I sounds like it still is like probably getting stomped by the poison builds. Maybe not. Maybe it's just fast enough. Maybe you could pop off, but obviously all the
Yeah,
shielding, you don't get
it actually does
any
really
damage.
good against the poison build, and I think that's where a lot of their success is coming from
Okay.
because they don't interact with your shield, so you can just generate 5,000 shield and one hit them.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Like it depends. Like if they can get like 500 poison in a couple seconds, in like 3 seconds, maybe it's like, yeah, because Dooley has very low HP. I think he has the lowest of all of them on a base HP level. Unless you have like the Walter Cooler, I guess, right? I think Walter Cooler generates HP, but
Yeah.
I think even base, like he has less because he has such good shielding stuff. I feel like they kind of compensate with a little bit lower HP. So I feel like poison would be good against him. But on the other hand, if you're not degrading the shield and it just lets you get one shot. So yeah. Um, he is who I want to play more. I'm not super interested in Vanessa because I want to do poison burn stuff, but I think I'm gonna really dive into that more once Mac comes out because that seems like kind of his whole thing is that like Vanessa seems like it's a archetype, but it seems like it's like his core identity is going to be that kind of stuff and doing it in different ways. Um, but yeah,
Yeah.
so overall, that's kind of what we're thinking is the strongest, what we feel. I honestly come up against very little Dooleys. I think it's possible because it's natural. You're going to fight more Vanessas than literally everything else because that's the free character you get when you download the game. Meaning everyone that bought the game gets enough things to, we get enough currency even at 33 bucks to buy both the two other characters. But you get a free key. If you give someone the free key, they only have Vanessa until they earn the currency or spend money to unlock the other characters. So you're just going to see probably 2-to-1 Vanessas in terms of accounts like that have access to it. And thus we're going to see it on ladder. Dooley is the one I see by far the least though. Maybe it's because he doesn't have any insane high roll builds that aren't just like the freeze that are so hard to actually make work.
I think he's just so hard to play. So you have all the different cores, right? And it's like you don't get promised the core you want.
Mm-hmm.
And there's like, yeah. So I think
You,
a lot of like players who are average or below, they buy Dooley once they get money for it or whatever, or if they could already afford it. They play 2 or 3 games, they get stomped, and they say, "This guy sucks." And they play, they're like, "I'm going back to Vanessa because I was winning when I played Vanessa."
yeah, I will say my first like 3 Dooley games, I think I did 2, 3, and 4 wins or something. And then I got like a 10 win, and I was like, I'm just gonna go play Pygmalion for a little bit because I just want to, and I just haven't gone back since. But like Dooley has a much harder learning curve in general because you can make so many bad decisions, I feel like, with his builds. But
There's so many
that's with
Dooley
every character
items.
too.
There's so many Dooley items that I never want to pick. So it's like I know there's builds that you should make with those, but I just don't even know what they are.
Yeah, and it's like I think that's kind of like when you're learning a character, it is really good. Like now that when I'm playing Pig, like I can just kind of like I'm so good at knowing when I need to pick up an item. Like if I just see an ATM, I just hold on to it because maybe I get bird and maybe that bird and ATM is going to work with snow globe. And then I just like, I can start building these builds as like backup plans if I don't high roll what I'm currently aiming for. And so there's like a lot of just knowing like what items you stand out that are build arounds that you might want to pick up and hold are important. And with Dooley, I feel like that's just a little bit maybe not harder, but I mean, maybe it just feels harder because every game you have a different core and you're trying to completely build your whole build around this thing. So you're always, I bet that's what it is. You get a core, you're trying to force a build that works with this core, and trying to force builds in this game is usually pretty weak, and you have to be willing to adapt more.
Yeah. And when I see like, Crip or somebody else that's good play Dooley, a lot of the times they're taking the core off the board, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
They're not even focusing on the core, they're just focusing with the resources they're given. And I think when you don't know the card pool and you don't really understand, it's really hard not to say, I'm just gonna grab all the things that go with this core.
100% because and that's unlikely. Although like whenever I play Dooley, I'm like I'm getting duct tape, man. This item is jacked, bro. This is if this on Pygmalion would be his best one of his best items. It's like a yo-yo but for shields. I think right. It's when you use an adjacent item, you get shield.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
Love that item.
The
All
weird
right.
thing is that his actual pop off ability is not give shield. It's slow.
Yeah. That's actually what it does when it uses it, and then it just
Yep.
when you use adjacent items, you get shield. This is a great
Right.
item on
I just thought
Pygmalion.
it funny that like you would think it would work the same as yo-yo, where it's like yo-yo damage no matter what. And this one, it's like damage for the adjacents, slow when I go off.
I bet it literally doesn't work that way because it would be so easy to, because this is on the very first fight in the game with the banana. And anytime you got it on Pygmalion, if you ever get a yo-yo, you're just infinite with shield and damage. Like, cause you'd have one, use the other, use the other, use the other. So I bet like they had this as a usability and then they gave it an active instead. And they were just like, all right, we can't have when like yo-yo is so strong because there's a lot of items that like when you use an item, this thing happens. Those don't count as use effects. Those are trigger effects. Yo-Yo says when you use an adjacent item, use this. That is such strong wording, and almost nothing has that wording in the game. There's a couple things, but very few things have a use this attached to it, you know? Another one is an example, Clam. At the start of the fight, use this. That's if it was like slow 3 things at the start of a fight, it would be strong. But using this, it triggers synergies and hasting and this and that. The ability to use things is believe it or not, very powerful. Except for in the keychain. Keychain sucks. 12 seconds. For every 12 seconds, I could use my 3-second cooldown building. Yeah, who cares, bro? All right. So you wanted to talk about decision trees and kind of branch off to that after that with like kind of like how wins work and stuff like that. Well, so I'm gonna give you the floor to kind of
Really, what I wanted to focus on in our conversation today was how unbelievably well designed the game is. And it feels like every decision that I'm able to start understanding why they made it only makes me respect and love the game on a deeper and deeper level.
Yeah, I've been I thought I was skeptical that this game would be good. Very skeptical actually. Because
Yes, you were.
it's like 6 years or whatever, and I'm like, I've played backpack battles, I've played this, like what are they gonna do that's like actually good? And every step of the way, I mean, I still bought it for $100 like way long ago because I wanted to see what they would do. And you know what? I have not been let down. They have absolutely blown me away at every stage. And it's like, it's even hard for me to narrow down like the decisions that I don't even realize that are really good decisions that they've made. But like, that makes it just so fun to just play. It makes every game feel so rewarding. Getting 7 wins isn't particularly hard, but it feels good to get 7 wins, like you're making progress. So, in the design of the items, there's a lot of like, I actually didn't think that there's a lot of items that do very similar things in slightly different ways, especially when you go between characters. But it's like they all are unique enough in their own way where I don't feel like, oh, there's like 7 items that do the exact same thing, you know? Like sometimes like Hatchet is just a thing that does 5 damage every 5 seconds. Like this sucks, but when I buy it, I get a coin. So when I'm doing a certain build, Hatchet is insane to buy when I have Lemonade Stand. Whereas other items that are maybe better than Hatchet, but are very similar, are not nearly as good because they don't give me HP. So there's just like 100 little decisions that they've made when they made these characters and the overall game mechanics that I approve of. But I want to hear a data analyst talk about it.
Absolutely. First, I want to just revisit him saying that it's easy to get 7 wins. We shouldn't really like spread that message. Like we're fortunate, you know, we have been able to adapt to the game very well. But like, um, there's people who aren't able to do that, and the best part of the game is that I think if you watch people better than you, it's so maybe not so easy, but the game is so skill based that you will pick up things from the person you're watching and you will get better at the game and you will almost instantly see that impact your runs and you'll do better. Well, like I said, we're really fortunate. We both average like upwards of like 8.5, 9 wins per run. I used to track my runs and then I said, you know what, this is a waste of time. I'm always getting these consistent kind of results. So um, I wish I could get 10 every single time, but of course that's not how it works. And
Yes.
if honestly, I don't even want the game to be like that. I think that would be a negative if the game was that consistent, because part of the fun is that even a weaker player can just kind of like pop off out of nowhere and get 10 wins and beat me. And I know that takes variance, and I know not everybody likes RNG and variance, etc. But I think it's an important part of a healthy ecosystem for a game. So, just to get back to the decision trees thing. So I think there's generally like 3 things that make this gameplay uh, so deep and experiential. And a lot of this I've come to the realization through talking with Platt because we play generally different characters
Mhm.
and we take completely different ways. We've co-piloted and we just do very different things when we get to a crossroads. And there's so many crossroads, right? So the first layer is the amount of decisions that you get to make. So the fact that you get to pick between 3 different you know, events every single hour, and when you click on one of those events, generally you get 3 different options to do, right? So it's like very quickly you see the multiplicative math. And if I pick the middle option and he picks the left option, then not we split there. But we could both pick the middle option and then I pick the left option and he picks the middle option, so on and so forth for every single hour of the game. So by the time you go through, I believe it's 6 per day, right? And then you get to day 10, which is normally when builds are like kind of topping out and starting to get really, really powerful. You've been through 60 iterations of 3 choices and then 3 choices, roughly speaking. So the amount of decision tree variance is so huge because just one decision that we make, even if me and Platt had the same character, the exact same options, right? If we do everything the same the first 3 days, that's great. But as soon as we're given one option where we go different directions, now every single hour and every single day, we work further and further away from each other on the decision tree, and that leads to us ending up in different builds and sometimes completely different genres of builds, right? So if we were both playing Pygmalion, I would not be surprised if we would get offered something like a drum or something like a tent or whatever. And all of a sudden, Platt has the experience to say, well, that's a 10-win build if I just grab that and build around it. And so he goes off in that direction, and I continue on the direction that probably were the things that I was just given and I already have going on the board. And I could still get 10 wins with that. That's a beautiful part of the game. But he's probably going to get 10 wins on a higher percentage basis than I am because he went in that direction. And when you're talking to each other about the game, it's really hard um, for one person if you're getting the same results. Like if we're both averaging 9 wins a game, for one of us to say like, well, no, I'm actually making the better choices. You know what I mean? One of us objectively has to be making the better choices, but it's very hard to iron out who is making the better choices. And the reason that is so valuable is because then you can have a bunch of people who are experts. So when you go on streams, you see people who play completely differently in different ordinances of importance for their things. So some people like skills really early to determine the direction of their build, like Crip. I like skills really late after I have my build, and I try to get a skill that makes it insanely powerful. Now, Crip wins more than I do, and he plays with all 3 characters. He probably averages, I don't know, like 9.6 wins a run or something ridiculous.
I'd believe
But
that.
the point is, we're both in that like field of being over 9 wins, and so is Platt. You know what I mean? And all 3 of us completely differently evaluate the micro decisions in the game, and that's why we don't end up with the same builds at the end of the game. Now there's plenty of people who might value the same things I do, and they might be trying to push Vanessa Poison because it's like the best thing to play right now. But that doesn't make them better than Platt or Crip. If anything, I would say when it comes to being good at the game, playing all 3 heroes and getting 10 wins with all of them is probably like the best sign of that. But even when it comes to something like Platt does, where Platt, even when Pig was the weakest hero before the patch, Platt was playing him and getting 10 wins. And what that did is it made it so that he had a vast net of opportunities to get to 10 wins where he could use different builds. And once they nerfed everything, he just went through the roof, and his win rate went from probably averaging like 8 to 8.5 to like 9.5. You know what I mean? So Pig just became so much more powerful, and he was able to fully utilize that increase in power.
Yeah, I mean, I 100% went from I got 7 wins pretty much every time, always, and then I would be lucky to get 10 wins. I would have to dodge the super builds, because I could beat most things that weren't the super builds. But it was that was also, I was never playing Skyscraper. I did it like 1 time, 2 times, just to kind of, and I was like, oh, this is powerful, and it auto wins you up to 7 wins because nothing before then could ever beat it. But then you go up against even the higher roller versions of that. And I ended up getting good. I ended up actually increasing my win because I found out how good Fort was against that, how good a single freeze item could like counter that build if you're doing the same thing. But once they nerfed the best Pig build, my win rate went to, I got like 10 wins like 90% of the time. Like my next 10 games, 9 of them were 10 wins. 1 of them was like a 7, It's like I did way better after they nerfed the best builds, because they got out of my way, and the stuff I already was getting pretty good with are now on par with the power level of other stuff. So yeah, it was actually great. Them nerfing Pig was the best thing that happened to me as a Pig player. So that was great.
Yeah, so that's a different level of depth and a different skill. So it's like me and Platt probably average within like point 0.2 wins of the same on Pig. I would say that he is a much better pig player than me because I'm going to play like 5 builds. Like that's the extent of where I'm going, and I'll be given different opportunities on the run. That if I would have known how to take advantage of them, I would have got 10 wins much more often, right? So that's one of the things I love about the game is that you can be someone who averages 9 wins, and you can actually be too specialized to really say that you're great at the game. And if your build gets nerfed, all of a sudden you come back down to earth.
Hmm.
Um, so the game has a combination of a level of complexity that allows you to keep learning and keep enjoying the additional iterations and runs of the game, while if you want to just specialize in 1 build or 2 builds, like Gara does, like Gara plays only Vanessa and plays like only 2 builds in Vanessa. They're both very aggro, and he's gotten to like the highest level that you can get in the game with that. That doesn't mean that Gara can pick up any old character and play, and get 10 wins. Uh, but he's still able to be at that like really high level of success in, I don't know what they call it, legend, mythic, etc.
It will be there soon. Don't worry. And I want to be clear. We're both going to get there. I'm pretty confident. The only reason we're not there is, well, one, I think most players are not there. We play a lot and we win a lot and we're still not there. You need to play a lot in order to get there in a season. I don't know if they're going to do full resets in between seasons back down to the bottom, or if they're just going to drop you like 3 ranks or something, like, or like, oh, you made it to masters, you're going to start silver, you're going to start gold this season or something like that. I don't know, but um that is like, it's impressive. If you're there, you have some game time in this game, because I've played almost only
Mhm.
ranked. I've played, I think on my first 3 days, each day I did one unranked game to warm up, and then I was like, I don't need that anymore. I'm just gonna play ranked. And it's, yeah, so those guys are monsters. Good job on them for getting there.
Definitely. And Platt got laid on me because I'm a complete idiot. And I didn't realize that you could use in-game currency, so I thought you could only use tickets. And there was a glitch where I
Oh,
wasn't getting rewards of tickets from from like the first 2 days. I just couldn't get any tickets. So I only did my free run and ranked, and I was playing all my other unranked runs. And
that's
then
so
as
funny.
soon as soon as I figured out you could just spend 100, I was like, oh, okay. Like, and then I only played rank after that.
Yeah, which is like great, because how much currency am I at right now? 30 I'm at 3300, and that's like, and I only started with 2000, so I mean, I'm making profit. It's slow but surely, but also keep in mind, I'm always spending my currency for the things. I basically don't get that many tickets. I don't know if the tickets are guaranteed now at 10 wins. Um
You don't get any tickets in ranked unless you get them from a chest.
okay, that's what I thought. I actually, what's funny is I didn't know that this could happen, but I did a 10 open for the chest, and in my chest there was a chest. I got one
Yes,
more chest from it. I was like, "Oh, how do they fit that in there?" I thought that was funny. One
I
thing you were
love that.
yeah, it's good. It's a good feeling, because it, like, the way you get the currency to play the game is in the chest. And if you get 7 wins, you're probably going to average 70 to 80. So you may not, 7 wins is not going to make you infinite, probably on like a large scale. But between the one free ticket and consistently getting 7 wins, that will make you infinite, as long as you don't play 600 hours a day, which is, I think, that's what Crypt does somehow. One thing I wanted to, well, you wanted to bring up was the statistic of wins, I suppose. It was, you said you had the spreadsheet, you were doing your math, and basically how many wins people are expected to get, something like that.
Yeah, well, I used AI to help me make a model because I'm not going to do 100,000 instances by myself on a spreadsheet.
Nothing
But yeah,
artificial about this intelligence, all right?
this is real intelligence. All right, so do. All right, I just wanted to pull up the actual number so I don't misquote anything. So yeah, so I got the distribution right here. The game is super complex, so I don't want to say this is 100% the most accurate thing. But given my understanding of the ghost system and of everything, I made the most accurate 100,000 player model, right? And then we probably don't have 100,000 players right now, just to see what the average amount of wins would be with the rules that exist already in the game, which is basically that if you lose X amount of times in a row, I don't remember what I used, but it was based on the idea that like if you lose the first 5 in a row, right, then you still get like 2 more before you're completely done.
Hmm.
So, because losing 5 times in a row is like, 12 plus 3, so you can still lose again, and that will bring you to 21, prestige that you lost. And then of course you go back to 1 prestige, you get your little what are those called, the fates?
Yeah, I think they are called the Fates. I don't know what the other two are. I've always taken the enchantment every single time. I don't even know
Yeah.
what the other two are.
You get a diamond item, an enchantment, and then 20 gold and 5 exp, which
That's
I've
right.
definitely taken a few times, because sometimes the 5 gold and exp gets you your level up
Where he gives the
where you get
enchantment.
the 3 picks of the enchantment, and I would rather have the 3 picks than a random one.
That's true. But I would say if because you're starting in a new day, meaning you're going to get an enchantment anyway, because you're going to level up in that day. Because as long as you win the PVE fight, probably.
Well,
But still,
in this situation, you would be 2 levels away.
okay. That's what you're talking about. Understood.
Like,
Yeah, the diamond item, I think that should be changed or something. Like I can't imagine ever clicking that button on purpose.
you get to pick between 3 diamond items, and they've always been bad when I pick. Like,
Okay.
I
At
I
least it's
get
a draft.
offered like half the time. I get one of the 3 options is the freeze like bridge, which almost never works with any build that you have at that stage of the game.
Maybe
Um,
they should just add a reroll to it. Make it an infinite reroll, which is like, is it that crazy? Maybe, but one,
that's
two, three,
probably
four,
too
five
good.
gold.
Oh, that's probably too good.
All right, maybe just one
Because
free
Pig
reroll then
always
or
has way
something.
more money than everybody else, so it's like now Pig becomes ridiculously good.
Okay. Yep.
And I think he's already the strongest hero. But one reroll would, like, I don't think that's anything. You know what I mean? Just
Yeah.
like give me a reroll. Because if you give me a burn weapon, a poison weapon, and the freeze bridge, and I'm playing ammo Vanessa, then I got 0% better after
Hmm.
picking that. I got whatever gold it's worth.
That's why it's like I always take the enchantment, because even the worst enchantment for me is like always lifesteal, and I'm like, it's still like sometimes it can make it work, but like 95% of the time my build gets noticeably better with a random enchantment on not even a random item, but just on an item. Like the enchantments are strong in this game. That is, they went hard on. They are rare and powerful. They actually they could break builds in half for sure, which is one of my
So
favorite things.
yes, and I agree. And like, there's some things that are just amazing enchantment targets because they give like global buffs and stuff. So like, if you get like the multicast chip,
Hmm.
whatever that's called, because I don't really read cards all the time, um, and it gives Aqua things multicast. If you give that crit, it gives all of your Aqua units 10% multicast. So like, I'm always learning, and a lot of the times I might know that there's a really good enchantment that I can pick, but if I think there's a target that theoretically could be better, I want to see, so I increase my game knowledge
Hmm.
of what it does, right?
I mix it up. I do that sometimes, but also I've been burned so much with shield items, like, oh, get 10 shield on an item that can't activate or do anything. I'm like, it's like, oh, this item that doesn't activate or trigger can't be slowed. I'm like, so now I'm waiting for a cheat sheet. I just kind of go with some things that I know are pretty good, and then I'm like, I'm going to use a cheat sheet because I think they're going to add it. They said they're going to give you previews, so you're going to be able to see what it does before you enchant it. But that's just
Yeah,
not a
that will be so much better because right now, like players like us or anybody who has more hours than us has such a huge advantage against anybody who just casually plays. Because those decisions are game breaking. Like if I know that this is a great target and I can give all of my guys plus 10% crit or whatever it is, right? If I can put it on something and then it gives the 2 adjacent units haste, right? Like there's all kinds of different things that you can learn.
spoiler. Jabalian Drum has been broken with almost any enchantment. Every enchantment I put on it, it makes it whenever you use a weapon, do the thing. So freeze, it would make every time you use a weapon freeze the thing for a second. So it's just like,
It's
oh,
insane.
it's insane. You have bird yo-yo and you're just freezing this is like, there's a permanent freeze build, but you have to get lucky. There's no real items to make it work in Pygmalion for permanent without a little bit of luck there. um But
So
sorry,
I'm going
continue.
to get into the numbers now. So the model is actually super cool that they're using, right? And I feel like whether they started with this vision or if they adjusted it once they started playing, but the fact that once you get to 10 wins that you're no longer in the pool is so important, because unlike in Hearthstone, in like Arena, which is kind of the most comparative kind of like run game wins mode, um in that mode there is a literal cap to how often you can win and lose, right? So it's like at the end you're only playing people who have made it that far, etc. But there is the situation of the ghost, etc. So the really cool thing about this one is once you get to 10 wins, people with less wins than you can continue playing, right?
Hmm.
And they can keep going into days and they don't have to face you. That's important, right? So like a lot of those Ghost, Plat, and Loliet builds are out there, and after you get to day 13, you're not running into them anymore because we already got our 10 wins and we're out of there. So when you're doing day 14, 15, just remember you're playing against the worst versions of the builds that we were running. Or somebody else's builds that just weren't good enough to get to 10 wins earlier. And
Interesting.
that makes it
I
so
didn't even
that
know that.
you get to more so you get more people at 10 wins than 9 wins. Like statistically the way that it's going to work out is you're going to have twice as many people getting 10 wins than 9 wins, which is why I love when people bitch about getting 9 wins, cuz like just even statistically speaking, you're just more likely to get to 10 wins. And how many times, Plat, have you been in a situation where you're like, "All right, I got 3 battles and I just got to get this one last win."
Yeah. I very rarely lose at 9 wins. It's happened for sure. I've had, but it's like I could probably count it on one hand. Like I probably had like 3 to 5 that I've lost at 9. I've lost way more at 7, and then at 9, I almost always get the 10.
I can't say that's true because back when you were playing bad builds, I was playing Vanessa. So all my runs were like 9, 10 wins.
Hmm.
Um, but once again, my first 3 days I didn't play ranked. So um, none of those really mattered. You know what I mean? Well, I would play unranked until I could get 10 wins. But all those 9 wins when I didn't get the ticket were so painful. It's like, well, I guess I never get to play ranked, even though I had a couple hundred friggin' money that I could have been spending to go into ranked.
Did I teach you that you could do it, or did you learn? How did you
You
learn that you could?
taught me, yeah.
Okay, thank God, because like that's I feel bad for you. I thank God we're on the other side of it. I
I
feel
didn't
bad
even
for you.
tell you because
Yeah,
I was so embarrassed. So
yeah. I was
like
like,
you mentioned that, and I was like, oh shit.
you're like,
So yeah. So I am pretty far behind Platt as far as like the number of games we played and stuff. But I am at like 1,780 money, right? And unlike Platt, I didn't buy a second one to do giveaways. So I started at I think 0, right? You just start at 0 and then you get your first free run and then you get however much
yeah,
from
you get
there.
2,000 currency for any pack, and then you get yeah, if you buy both characters, that's cost 2,000 currency. Then you would have 0 after that. I already had a bank of 2,000 because I bought 2 packs.
Yep. So I started at 0 and I'm almost to 2,000 now. So I'm currently, amidst going infinite. Same as Platt, because as you saw, he's like 1,300 and something plus himself right now.
Yeah, and that's
Um,
also including like my occasional 3 win where I'm trying to force a really bad item that just does not
well,
work at all.
also all your 7 wins are kind of like in vain because that does nothing to generate more money, right? So
Yeah.
it's like when you were playing like big HP build, and you were running into skyscraper that said like that's not really that big of a HP. You were just breaking even on those runs or going slightly negative. So anybody who's got over 1,000, like uh, currency above what you started with, you're doing good. So yeah, so twice as many people are going to get 10 as 9 wins. So I thought that was pretty cool. Um, and then the odds of getting 7 plus, right? I thought this was brilliant because I played a lot of Arena and Hearthstone, and like 7 was kind of like if you could average 7 wins, you were a really, really good arena player. And that was where like people within the, culture kind of drew the line.
Yeah, because 4 wins means you're above 50%, right? Because there's always a winner, always a loser, and after 3
Yes.
losses. So once you get to win 4, you're now in the minority, and so 5 and 6 is further minority.
Yep. And I don't know what statistic percentage it was because I didn't really look at it, um but you're 27.4%, so like whatever, we'll just call it 27 because there is like roughly like 10% margin of error, not 10% out of 100, but like if I say it's 27%, then it could be 2.7% lower or 2.7% higher, just for people to understand like the variance. So roughly you have a 27% chance to get 7 wins or more, which is really cool because with the free ticket mechanic, and assuming you're not playing more than like 7 games a day, then you go infinite off of averaging 7 or more wins.
Yeah, absolutely. Like you said, you do go infinite as long as because they give you the free ticket. And so every win you get below 7 is, but again, it's average. It all averages out because the 10 win will eventually out counteract the 3 win. Um,
And and this stuff is not counting the free tickets you can open in chests, which is variance, so we don't know how many me and Plat opened of those. And the chests that you can open in chests, because that's going to be additional money that you got. And I've definitely gotten more chests inside of chests than Plat because I think I've gotten it like 4 or 5 times.
being mean, 1 second. I was like, buddy, he's biting too hard. Would you want to just snap? All right, sorry. My cat bit me hard. He doesn't normally do that. No, I'm kidding. I kid. I
So
love that
more
boy.
than a quarter of the player population is going to get to go infinite, and I think that's excellent for the health of the game. Um, and the only negative part of that is more than that can't go infinite, right? So it's like you can't, if you move yourself from a below infinite player up into infinite, you kicked the worst infinite player out of the infinite loop. Now, we know there's probably going to be quests and events and other things that is going to increase the number of people. And if we can get to a point where like the meta is kind of like a third of all players go infinite, I don't want to hear anyone complaining about the ticket system and the fact that you have to pay to play the game when there is in-game rewards, there is skins, there is all this awesome stuff, and it kind of protects you from bots.
Well, it also it's not taken into account whatever this bazaar is gonna be, right? Like if you're able to quote unquote sell cosmetics, I mean, obviously, like you get 100,000 people, 1 million people, open 10 chests. There's 100,000 of the silencer cosmetic, right? Like, I mean, this isn't going to be worth anything, but maybe you could sell it back to the company. Maybe they have something. It's like, oh, because otherwise, what am I going to do? I'm going to eventually have 100,000 of these. So I assume that they're going to have a mechanic that I can somehow dust this for maybe a small amount of currency as well. I mean, this is pure speculation. We have no idea, but there's no way that they're gonna just have I feel like an open bazaar system and then have everyone that has these common items. Like I got 6 of these or something, like of these Omega rays. And maybe the variance between players is just high enough, but I assume that they're gonna have some way to offload your crazy amount of duplicates on your cosmetics because we're only a couple like weeks in. Imagine 4 months in, right? I mean, these are just going to get more and more compounding of a problem. So
Yes, I don't know what their economic model is, but without like a dusting or some sort of like positive incentive increasing thing, because if you can dust it for like even just 5 whatever, then all of a sudden that item is now worth a dollar amount that is tied to how much does 5 of the crystals cost in real money.
yeah.
If it's 2 pennies, then now that has a value of slightly below 2 pennies, right? Because you wouldn't want to pay the price that you could just go into the shop, but it would definitely be above 1 penny. And like now you can actually generate a market where there is a price. Otherwise, there is no price. Everything that is not like single digits, right? People would want like something special, like one of the first 100 or 1,000 of the items, which of course are only going to be beta players. Um, and if you make something rare enough, right? So the legendary skins, the legendary versions of different cosmetics would have some kind of dollar amount as well. But the economics of scale to something like this is like not positive without a destroying incentive, right? So if you destroy it and you get something in return, then that actually can make it so that there is a reasonable pricing. So real quick, just to wrap up the odds, right? So like, what's the odds of a player getting 4 or more wins? 63%. That's excellent, because if you get below 63%, you just feel like you suck. Now we're talking about averages, so like you're going to average getting over 4 wins, which means you will have some under and you will have some over. So every time you go 1 win, you're going to also go, 7. So that's cool that even a player who is barely above the lower third at the 66th percentile, you're going to be able to average getting 1 chest per ranked run, which means you don't always get destroyed in ranked. And these are ranked numbers because you can restart as many times as you want in unranked. And that's what people do. They play their first 2 days. If they don't pop off, then they get out of there, whatever. I did mistakenly today play 1 run and I got 8 wins with a good build. And everyone, every step of the way was just super powerful. And I was like, that makes sense. Because people on Reddit say that this is what everybody's doing. They're just re-rolling until they get a build that they want to either play or that is really powerful.
So every decision this game has made for me so far has been, even the ones I've been skeptical of, have turned out to feel like the right decisions to me, such as the 100 currency required to play ranked. I was like, man, I don't know about that. That feels a little weird. And it's like, yeah, I understand the botting issue. Like, you don't want to just a million bots be able to get in and do it. But like, exactly like you said, because this isn't a lobby system. This isn't, you're not going up against 8 players and there's one winner. You're going into a giant kind of like sandbox almost. The currency means you don't just reroll. No one's gonna just throw away, and it's not much currency. I mean, it's $1. They could change that, who knows? But it's like, it's one of the lower amounts of currency they could offer that's still a little bit of a deterrent, where you don't want to just go in there, throw it away, because then you also lose ranks as well, I guess. But it just feels like it stops the bots. It gives you makes you want to make the best of your current situation. And it's been fantastic. So yeah. And also, like, technically, if you're, let's say you're an adult with a full-time job like we are, maybe you only have an hour to play a day, you go infinite with 0 wins because you get a free ticket every day, right? Like, so you do go infinite with 0 wins, but it really is just a matter of scale. How much do you play? If you play once a day, you never need to worry about ever winning a game and just have fun in ranked. If you want to play a couple games a day, then you do need to win a little bit. But the amount
Yeah.
of wins you
I
need
want to
doesn't scale directly.
I want to speed run 3 more statistics. So what's the odds of getting 10 wins in any given run slash, like, you know what I mean? And it turns out in any given run, you have a 9% chance of getting 10 wins.
That's
So
pretty
the
good.
cool thing about this is that because the other 10 win people get out of the way, so the very strongest runs end on day 10. And then the second strongest runs end on day 11, the third strongest runs, so on and so forth, right? So it's like I've gotten my 10th win on day 16 before.
Mhm.
That was obviously I was having a weak run, especially towards the end game, because it's hard to lose multiple times in the end game. So usually your losses are just in a row at the beginning, then you start popping off, right?
Yes.
Um, then of course we said roughly half of that. So you have like, a 4.2% chance of getting ninth place. So if you add those together, it's roughly 13% that you're going to get 9 or 10 wins on any one given run. Now averaging is different, but still, if you take that and just extrapolate it as an idea, the fact that, me and Platt are able to average that, like, 9-ish runs does not make us the best in the whole world, right? Even though it sounds like, we're almost to averaging 10 runs. There's only one number above the number of runs we're averaging. But we actually could just be in the bottom of that 13th percentile, right? So that still would make us better than 87% of players, which sounds really good. But, if you played card games and you've gotten to Legend, like Legend is usually much more selective than the top 10% of a game.
Hmm.
So I just like the fact that this game gives so much more opportunity for people to, one, get to the end of the game, whatever that is, like the 10 wins or getting to day 17, etc. And and just being able to feel like you're very successful.
Yeah, and again, like it just kind of boils down to they're just there's some very smart game designers at Tempo Storm Tempo, I don't know, and they've just been they're I trust their decisions more than I trust mine. All right, because like my intuition has been not like completely like I didn't expect the game to do good for lots of reasons. But my intuition's obviously not that of a good game designer. They have made decisions that are obviously just they're making a good game, even with things that I think aren't inherently intuitive, maybe at first glance to someone that's played a lot of like TFT and stuff like that. But because like even when I heard asynchronous initially, I was like, come on, who wants to play an asynchronous game? It's just a single player game. Like who wants to pretend to play multiplayer? But again, time and time again, they have proven my intuition's wrong, and they are making a really good, really fun game. So good job, Rainad and team, on that.
If you had to guess what the odds are of getting 0 wins, what would you think, like percentage wise?
0 wins. That honestly, if I'm gonna be honest, I would say you have almost impossible because if you die, you get the enchantment, and the enchantment is probably so strong or whatever. You know, you get that death boost on day 7 or something, right? 1, 2, is it day 7? I think, yeah. So let me say a 3%. I think you have a 3% chance of getting 0 wins.
Now, I did not share the data. Like, I shared a couple of data points, but I didn't share this or the whole data set with Platt. I want to remind you that I did not find a way to easily incorporate the idea of the power spike of the death mechanic.
Hmm.
So that's not in there. So it's really lower than what we're going to talk about. It's 3% is what it would be without the spike in power that you get from that. So it's almost 0% if I had to like, try to add in the value of that power spike. Imagine making a game so good that almost no one doesn't get a win.
Yeah, it's someone's always winning with something. You're gonna be like, oh man, I is like because you always get that feeling of like I was so close. Like I was like, especially if you get one of the wins at the end, but it just felt like it came together a little bit too late. You're like, I was making some good decisions. I started to pop off, but it was just a little too slow. I didn't have enough prestige to tank that last hit. So I mean, it's just like it's great. Again, like you said, like always being able to at least win a little bit.
And it's so insane, the game design, to me, because it's like, yeah, the level of cope that they give you in this game on many different tiers. So it's like if you get 4 wins and you just felt like you started to hit your build, you can now blame it on the build you lost to, or you lost to a meta build and I refuse to play meta builds, or all of these different things. You get the power spike and you win your next 2 matches, and you're going to say, I won those matches because of my decisions and how smart I am, not because of the power spike. Just so many really good decisions. And to close it out, the average number of wins is going to be roughly 4.8, which means in ranked, the average person will walk away with 1 chest, and with probably, because you can't get zero point 0.8 wins, with probably an extra win. So now you're going to be like, not only did I get the chest, I was right there to getting 2.
And you don't drop a rank when you get 4 wins, right? You maintain.
You maintain, then you get +1 pip for 7 and +2 for 10 wins, which is why climbing takes forever.
Yeah, because the games take a while and you need 5 pips, I think, to get to the next tier, something like that, or the next
Yeah.
thing. Yeah, it's a long ladder system for sure. It's not designed to be sped run unless you're purposely building for that, I suppose. But yeah, I have it written down here as well that we wanted to go through item highlights. I kind of forgot what we meant by that by this point now. Um,
Yeah. Well, why don't you bring up the old ATM, and then
you're right. You're
I
right.
think you have a few things to teach me and the rest of us about this item that is often overlooked as just something we'll play in the beginning of the game.
Yeah. So ATM, I can't give you the text of what it does because I'm not in game. But what this does is at bronze, basically, it's every 3 seconds, it's going to give you shield equal to your income. When you buy this, you get 1 income, or is it, I think it's 2 income at bronze. And then it gets better. I think at diamond, it's like +5 income or something. You don't get the income if you upgrade it through a level up, but you have to, if you purchase it, you do get the level up income amount. Um, this item, I think if you look at it on paper, it seems pretty bad. in general. It's the amount of income you get. Let's say if you go crazy on income and you're having like my highest income that I've had, my highest ends are like in the 20s, like low 20s. You start at 5, getting the low 20s is a lot of clicking buttons that will give you increased income. So at max, if this does quadruple, this is like 2, 4, this is like 80 shields every 3 seconds. That is less than a bushel and a bird, a partridge and a pear tree will give you on day 2 for the most part. Because the bird will trigger the bushel 3 times, 5 times. The bushel gives you 20 every single time. It just like, it's way more shield. So this isn't actually that much shield. The income is fine, it's good, but this feels like a buy sell item. You buy it, you sell it, you got some income, whatever. But this is like a cornerstone, so important item to Pygmalion as an entire character. Because if you once you like go through and you look at his items, there are almost no medium-sized properties. There's some, but there are very few. There's like balcony, there is the stained glass window, there is the snow globe, and then there is ATM. There might be one I'm forgetting about, but these are the 4 that I could think of off the top of my head. This is the only out of these is the medium property that has an active ability that is still short. Snow globe is arguably quite a bit better than this because it has a better effect. It can get multicast, but it takes 6 seconds for it to go off. This is a 3-second thing. And snow globe can be harder to find. This can show up at bronze. Snow globe doesn't show up until later. You buy this and you can put it on your board. It is so important. There's a lot of skills in the game. It's good for a lot of reasons because it's just a cornerstone build. There's so many things like bird that care about this. Bird is a broken item. It has a 3-second thing, so it's good with things like yo-yo. It's activating very frequently. So there's a lot of items like when you activate this thing, when you activate an item, heal. When you activate an item, do this, it makes the bird better. But beyond that, also, there are a ton of skills in this game for Pygmalion that are when you use a property, do X. When you use a property, haste adjacent items. When you use a property, this gets extra crit or something. When you use a property, blah, blah, blah. And there's a lot of properties that don't have active effects, that just have triggered effects. Or like every time a pawn shop doesn't do anything, it just gives you HP. There's the one healing one that it gives everything else multicast. So there's a lot of like passive properties. And even the ones that have triggered abilities don't activate all these skills. This is a property that will activate all your skills on a 3-second cooldown, makes your bird better, but like it's funny because you look at the item in 3 seconds, it activates. It doesn't really do that much for your build, but it's such a cornerstone for like all these different style of builds, and it's just like really good for Pygmalion specifically. The only other item that's comparable as in importance is Snow Globe, and again, Snow Globe having 6 seconds and freezing. Sometimes the shield is better because you can get things that synergize with shield a lot more than just freezing enemy stuff. But overall, it's like kind of a busted item, but you wouldn't know that when you look at it. Medium property, activate 3 seconds is a lot in a package that you just don't have that many options for. You have almost 0 actually.
So when he first told me about this, before he explained himself, I was like, I don't really see it. You know what I mean? Because the text of the card is not the power. And I think this is one of those things where there's a lot of cards like this, where there are opportunities in the game, usually between skills or interactions with another item, that it might have a certain combination of tags where it can end up getting into a situation that is extremely powerful. And this one just happens to have a higher percentage of getting into that situation of extremely powerful than a lot of the other property items.
Yeah, this is Pygmalion's Chris Army knife, right? Like where it's like Chris Army knife is a weapon, it's a tool, it's a friend, it's got every good tag you want it to have. This is just a property, but it's actually I think even more core because Chris Army knife like is very, very good because it has all the tags, but there's really not a replacement for this. Again, other than Snow Globe, and Snow Globe this fits better into a lot of builds that Snow Globe doesn't fit into, because when you have Snow Globe, you want multiple other properties for sure, because it doesn't get multicast unless it's adjacent to 2 other properties, so it gets 0 multicast, 1 multicast, 2 multicast. So now you're having at minimum, plus if you're running Snow Globe, you want this, because either you're running 2 6, 8 spaces and 2 larges and a Snow Globe, which is a totally different build. This just fits so snugly into so many things, and there's so many skills that care about your properties. Um, you should be buying ATM when it shows up if you're playing Pygmalion. Even if you, because I would always buy it, put it in my chest, sell it. And then I was like, wait a second. This is so crazy good with the bird. And the bird is like one of the best items in the game. So just don't immediately sell ATM. Realize what you got on your hands here. This is a great item.
Yeah, and the other big thing between this and the property, and I know you mentioned this, but I just want to highlight it again. It's it's twice as fast
Yes.
as as the snow globe. So when it comes to triggering adjacent items, and of course the greatest adjacent item to trigger exists in Pygmalion, which is Yo-Yo.
Yes.
It's just so great, and really for me, when I think of Yo-Yo, 3 seconds is like that threshold where I'm like, that's at least how fast I want the thing next to my Yo-Yo to be.
Yes, 100%. It's not the best thing to put next to Yo-Yo, but it's very, very viable. If you're waiting to get your bird that has a multicast of, 3 or 5 or something, if you don't have a grindstone, they're like, if you don't have a bunch of piggles are pretty good. They're at 3 seconds. They can buff the Yo-Yo, but like this is just the thing is, even without Yo-Yo, it's just like this is good in almost every Pygmalion build until you find it's good early on because it just synergizes with pretty much everything. Also, it's an early property for if you have a property, get 4 income. There's a lot of things that care about properties. And I mean, this is the Chris Army knife. That's all I could say. It just does everything you need it to do simply by the fact of its tags, its size, its cooldown. It's the only thing it doesn't do great is give you shield, which is what the text does, but it's okay.
The
It doesn't.
one thing that you think that it would do, yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so I think that really is a good amount of information for our first time. We both love this game. We're addicted to it. We're gonna continue to make content together, on this channel. And what are your other thoughts, Platt?
Yeah, I mean, I'm ready to be done. So we're both gonna go play. We're gonna leave this. We're gonna launch. I already have the game launched. We're just gonna play some more. I'm gonna get this set up to start editing it, and then once it's processing, I'm just gonna play. Other than that, like, yeah, I think next time after we have another week or something, I would like to talk about potential buffs and nerfs in the meta, see if things have really stagnated a little bit. Right now, I still think they're pretty fresh. Some good things are coming up to the top, like Poison, Vanessa, like you said, but I don't think it's nowhere where it was before. That first balance patch was like chef's kiss. And like, obviously they just knocked the really big things out, but what I didn't expect, I knew a lot of games have balance patches where they knock the big things off and then a new problem arises. That I didn't realize how how much of an outlier those were. Like they knocked those out, and the whole late game meta it's a different game after day like 10 and 11 now. So many things are more viable. It opened up the meta game in 100 different directions comparatively. Now there is still the best things, but like you don't need to get lucky. You could have a powerful build of this, that, or the other thing. You don't need to win in 1.6 seconds or get infinitely damaged down by 20,000 HP skyscrapers or, infinite daggers. So yeah,
Yeah.
overall, just they've been doing a great job in my opinion.
And I love that the game can be adjusted live, right? That you don't have to do like, well, you do have to do downtime, but like you can still fight against the builds from before the patch. They're just weaker now. So it's actually a huge incentive to play right after they do a patch because you get to get like a free 10 wins because you're playing against these ghosts of these horrible builds. And I love the flavor of when you nerf those couple of big things, there's a period of time, and right now it looks like probably a week because we're still not a week out from the patch, and I don't think we have an oppressive meta yet. So it's like if they just start making like every other week a patch, right? You get 1 week of creativity and awesomeness, and then 1 week of dealing with a meta, and then it's all over again. And I think that kind of pacing is amazing.
That would be great. And yeah, I know they said in an earlier interview that their goal is to live patch the game without downtime. That they have technology set up to do it. It's just not ready for closed beta yet. So that will be the goal, where they're going to be able to patch the game, and in the middle of your run, there could be a balance patch. It won't affect the items you've already bought, but it will affect it if it shows up in the shop, I believe. Kind of weird.
Yeah, there will be something really weird going on with that, and we'll get a lot of complaints. But overall, I think It's really awesome and the game's amazing. So I'm just gonna leave it there. Thank you so much for watching. Please support the channel. It's a new channel, and Plat's been putting a lot of work into building things for this channel in the game, and we both feel like we're gonna be here for a long time.
Yeah, and you know what? I promised Laliette I'm going to split half of all the money that this channel makes with him until I get to 1,000 subscribers, and then I'm taking that all back. The joke is that this channel is not monetized or anything like that right now, and then it could be after 1,000. But yeah, no, I've been having a blast. I'm loving the game. Laliette's loving the game, and we're all loving you. So, guys, thank you very much for tuning in. If you want to see more of these, let us know in the comments down below. We're going to do more of them, whether you want to see it or not, but that's all right. Anyway, much love. Purplatypus and Laliette are Purplatypus, and we'll see you on the flip-flops. Bye!
Watch the views go up.